We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies.
Buenos dias, Deal Junkies. We're here in Manzanillo, Colima, Mexico, city, state, country. It's just me and Trevor right now with Mike Nuss up in... Are you at the studio, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I am. I'm so sad.
You what?
So sad. Are my AirPods working okay? They're new.
No.
I've never used them.
Yeah, got to maybe talk
a little louder.
Talk with your lungs. What is it?
I'm 1 week into the sickness that everyone has had, so my energy will increase as we get going. Yeah, I've been puking my guts out. So, that being said,
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm showing up. I'm not showing up for you. Well, this is a favor for you. I'm showing up for Matt King, and then you guys made me get here early. But that's all right. I love you. I'll show up for you guys.
Thank you. Trevor today wanted to talk about development. I think we talk about development a lot, but
no,
I assume he has new ideas. So.
No, I don't have new ideas. So what we've been seeing a lot of is projects that don't work, which I'm guessing you see a lot of in the residential space also, Mike. And there's a lot of people who listen to this who want to get into development. So I want to talk about
why they shouldn't.
Maybe, or what they should look out for. So like, I wanted to talk through projects and what you guys see make them not work, how people take them and develop the land and take them to the entitlement phase when they shouldn't, because the project doesn't actually pencil and they don't think about all these things on the front end. So I want to save people millions of dollars from the lessons you guys have learned.
This is just Trevor being
so they don't have to
philanthropic. This is an episode on philanthropy. Charitable Trev. Mike, do you see a lot of that right now? You do a lot more like coaching on the development side than we do. I mean, we've connected you with people who want to do developments up in Portland, and then I guess just kind of...
I mean, it's that stupid pie in the sky that people want, right? For whatever fucking reason, it's just like, I want these units. I don't want to do 1 to 4 unit. I want a 12-plex, or I want to build an apartment building. Most people don't have any clue what they're doing when they get into it. And it's so much more complicated, significantly more complicated. The financing, the acquisition, and the due diligence on the front end, the time it takes to get something that is actually lendable on, the way that then construction loan actually happens, and the fact that the pool of people that construction lenders are going to lend to is shrunk significantly. Mm-hmm. There's problem number 1. And then number 3, if you can get a construction loan and you can get the thing built, what happens on the back end? And there's so much lack of knowledge going into that, that what we see right now is a ton of failed projects. And a lot of that's market rate driven or market condition driven. We've been in a recession. The first thing that drops in value is land. Bad basis. So many projects that were bought in 21, 22, 23, you just have bad basis. And then now you have a property that you own that you can't move forward on unless you just bring a lot of money to the table. And so in that aspect, the development world, if you can just bring money to the table, that's how you can solve problems. But if you don't have the ability to bring money to the table, they get stuck very, very quickly.
So I see that a lot, and I don't know development as well as you guys, so I'll probably ask you a lot of questions. But what I'm seeing from the deals we're looking at is, yes, you can bring money to the table and it works, but should you bring money to the table? So like what I'm seeing a ton of is the cost to build versus the end value, or your all-in cost after land acquisition, all the fees and whatnot, is higher than the end value. So it's like, you could bring money to the table and still do the deal, but why would you?
I think a good exercise for people that are thinking about getting into development, and Mike, I don't know if you can speak to this. I really don't know how like we fell into it. I mean, I just wanted to do it really bad, so that was probably part of it, and I just started learning as much as I could about it. But an exercise that makes sense to do on the front end is to look at projects that were built a year ago that are for sale now that, you know, just got recently stabilized, look at what their rents are, look at current value, and then say, okay, what would it cost to build us or to build this type of project right now? Because there's projects on the market right now that are selling in major distress, that are new, that are either in, you know, in receivership and the bank is selling it back to whatever, the open market, or it's, you know, the bank is forcing a sale from the seller and the seller's not going to get anything out of it. The bank is just trying to get their loan amount back, right? Or even take a haircut on the loan amount. And so if you're looking at the projects that are like in distress right now, then just think, okay, how much is the market going to improve by the time that I finish that exact same type of project? Like the only projects that are really still working are ones where there was a really good basis on the land and it's like Woody walk up. And even those are really tight right now. Like I can't, or there's some sort of state funding to bridge the gap on the wave SDCs. You're not going to have property taxes for the first 10 years. And you have, you know, some sort of like guaranteed income through federal housing. Like I don't even dive into that world, but I know that on our end, if you're going to do market rate anything, your goal is to do market rate housing, and there's no state added benefit. Like the only thing that even remotely underwrites, from what I can tell, and this might be on us, is Woody walk up. And it's like, you can't, because it's like the bottom end of new construction.
Because the cost on all the projects we're looking for, the cost to add that podium and like have your extra cost per square foot on the project is not justified. You're not getting that much higher rents on those projects in those locations where you're taking it higher. So it might cost $250, $300 a square foot to do it, but your rent's the same versus 180 to
higher.
180 to 200 square foot to build 3-story walk up.
Yeah. And I mean, there's areas in like where, you know, Michael Hamilton plays that it can still make sense because rents are so much higher per square foot, and he's building projects that I think are feasible, and he has economies.
He's not building right now. That's the whole thing. You guys are really talking about a point in time. And so I think we want to, like, what are we trying to get out of this episode? At a point in time, there's a certain construction type that just does not work right now. And you guys nailed it. And so that's one reason Michael Hamilton hasn't been building anything. He did buy the Rite Aid project, and he is moving forward with the Rite Aid project in Portland, but he hasn't broken ground on any other projects because the answer is the only solution is to dump money into it. And why would you dump money into that when there's other things to dump money into? And so this is how construction cycles work. You have booms and you have troughs, and we are in the middle of a trough. And we're in the middle of a trough because the back end's terrible, right? Builders build for the back end. And if the back end's there, builders will build. If the back end is not there, builders cannot build. And so that's just a period of time that we're in. The other thing that comes to matter is now your capital stacks. It's so the construction that is getting done in Portland, for example, it's institutional capital. They're looking at 20 and 30-year timelines. One of the sexiest buildings in Portland is being finished right now. It's probably one of the more expensive builds that we've seen in town. And it was the high water mark of a land sale. And I remember looking at a warehouse after this piece of land sold, and it must have been 2019, 2020, sometime around there, maybe 21. And the guys trying to sell the warehouse were pointing to that piece of land as, well, this is why this thing's worth this. And it's like, because an institutional capital stack dropped a shit ton of money. Is that what the market is? And that's the thing is, unless you have experience, unless you know what you're doing, how do you evaluate these things? And that's like the biggest lesson I would say for this is, do not get into development by yourself. You absolutely need a mentor. And market conditions can be the opposite. So I'll give you an example of when we tried to do our first 20-unit apartment building. Had some great land in Multnomah Village. It's a part of town that's ritzy, very valuable. No new buildings had gone up. There was one building, 2 lots down that had gone up 10 years prior. There was a couple buildings in entitlement. And this was a period of time as 2014, 2015, where construction costs were escalating significantly. And when we got our bid back, it was $4 million to build this building. And we're looking at it going, we can't do this. You know, it's $200,000 a unit. That we didn't pull the trigger. But if we did pull the trigger, we probably would have sold that building for like $7 or $8 million. because we were so shell shocked and I didn't know how to evaluate the back end. And part of evaluating the back end as a developer is you're taking risks. That is exactly what development is you're making guesses. You're making guesses that this is where the economy is going to be when I'm done with this project. And ideally going in, you want it to make sense that day when you sign the contract, knowing that 18 months later, you'll have a finished project. And so when the market's going up, then you don't pull the trigger, right? So I didn't pull the trigger because we would have had to get $3 per square foot on rent. And we had just broken the $2.25 mark on per dollar per square foot, right? So I remember I was underwriting my acquisitions at $1.50 a square foot in Portland for existing buildings. We're looking at new constructions just getting over $2 a square foot. And this one is, well, the only way we can refinance in the back end is if we get over $3 a square foot on rent. It just didn't make any sense. There was no comps for it. Maybe down in Uptown or Northwest 23rd or the ritziest part of town where tons of institutional capital is getting dropped. And so we exited that project and never built it. And looking back, well, lost $1 million by not taking the risk.
So do you think in that case, like you would have just used lower leverage, you would have known it's not worth it today, but you would have had a future outlook on it? Because you couldn't have got the debt stack to get 75% LTV or LTC on it, probably, right? Because the rents weren't there. But you would have been making a bet on the future value, and you would have known, okay, I'm going to build this, and today's cost isn't worth it day one, but you're just placing a bet on the future, and that's what people are doing.
Yeah, you need to be development isn't something that you want to do with a ton of debt. Right? You need debt, you need construction debt, but you need equity. Ideally, what a lender wants to see is that you have the dirt free and clear, or you have it close to free and clear. And while they will go up to 90% loan to cost, you really want your loan to cost less, and you want your loan balance to increase because you're erecting something, not because you're going in with debt. Because the problem with the back end isn't necessarily the value, it's the absorption rate, it's the time. Right. So Portland's heyday, 2012 to 2016, units were absorbing daily, right? Prices were changing during the day. Like your leasing back end, they had whatever that pricing, dynamic pricing's going up and down. The lease terms are going from 6 months to 9 months to 4 months to 8 months. And they lease 5 units a day. Like it was just, you just lease and lease and lease and lease and lease. And so your absorption rate is so slow that your risk is taken out of the project, or so fast that your risk is taken out. But when your absorption rate is increased or slowing, your risk increases every single day. And so that's where concessions come from, right? And so now how do you pencil, all right, we think we're going to lease 2 units a week or 4 units a week to now we can only lease 2 units a week. And in order to lease 2 units a week, we have to give away 4 months of rent. How do you put that into your pro forma? The way you put that in your pro forma is you don't use much debt. You look at a 30-year timeline. You understand you're dumping millions of dollars in this project, and you understand that this is a means to a different end. Development at scale is more about, I don't know where I'm going with this, but does that make sense? Like there's so many factors. It's not, flipping a house is easy. You buy it, you fix it up, you rent it, you sell it, whatever. It's a 6 to 9 month timeline. A development project is 3 months of due diligence or more. It's a year of entitlement or more. It's 12 to 18 months of construction or more. It's 3 different loans. Your exposure is significantly different. And that's the difference between residential and commercial is you have to have better stacks of capital. You have to have more resources.
So what mistakes are people making then? Because we see a lot of people who are developers, but not builders. And we're the builder coming in, looking at what they've done so far. And we're like, why would you do it this way? Why did you design it this way? Why'd you buy the land for this? And to me, it's like they're not even considering back end value or build cost. Is my take.
I think that to speak to specific projects that we're working on, and also to second Mike's thought process of the 24-month period before you can even potentially break ground on the project. It's like we're coming into projects at the 24-month mark, and we're like, why'd you guys do it like this? Come on. And it's like hindsight's 2020. Like, I'm sure 2 years ago or 3 years ago when they start, and like a ton of one land project we're looking at, they bought the land in 2019, and they've been just working it since 2019, and they got a part of it done, and now they're working on the second part, and we're going to come in and, finish it. But it's like, when I'm looking at that and saying, why did you do it this way? It's like, okay, why did you do it this way in 2022? Oh, that makes sense. Like, I would have maybe done the same thing in 2022. And so to your, like, you're looking at a point in time. It's like, we have the advantage of hindsight when we come in on the project to be like, hey, maybe this made sense 3 years ago, but right now it doesn't. And so I think a lot of people are getting stuck right now because they started a project without the foresight of where potentially the market's going to go. And it's not like anybody knows. Like, nobody knows what's going to happen with the market. Nobody knows that absorption rates are going to do what they did. Nobody knows that construction costs are going to do what they did.
Well, so I guess the biggest take from there is that rents flattened or decreased a little bit, so you didn't have rent growth, and now your project values are down,
and construction
costs went up.
Yeah,
but you're not. Is that your take, Mike?
Yeah. Well, first of all, people do know. We have forecasting. We know permit activity. You see what your competition is doing. So when you see every building that's being built is 80% studios and 1 bedrooms and 15% 2 bedrooms, and you get a couple 3 bedrooms in there, guess what? Rent's coming down in the studios and 1 bedrooms. That's how competition works. And to answer your question about why do you design it this way, why do you design 80% studios and 1 bedrooms? Because studios and 1 bedrooms are smaller units. And then when you rent them, they have a higher dollar per square foot on their rent. It's just math. So you design it this way because that math works on your pro forma. And then people do the exact same pro forma because they're looking at the same loan products, and those same loan products need to see you build at this dollar per square foot on average, and you rent on this dollar per square foot on average. And so you need 80% of your building to drive up all your rent dollar per square foot, so that way it looks good on paper. And then it comes down to execution. How fast can you build it? Can you be the first one to the market? And can you actually absorb your project? And then that comes into, well, how good is your design? Does it look cool? Where is it located? What little pocket are you in? And so, I mentioned this where I feel bad for a seller because we negotiated a deal and I had to back out. And part of it was because there are these 1 bedroom units in existing building where they're getting like COVID rents, ridiculously high rents, but they're in a part of town where there's at least 15 approved buildings that have not broke ground. And that is hundreds of 1 bedroom units. And so, after I looked at his units, I'm like, well, your building looks great on paper, but once you walk through it, you're like, your rents are going from $1,700 down to $1,200, right? I can't buy it based on that pro forma. And another example of that exact same neighborhood is development should be a balance sheet thing. You should already have your chessboard built out. And part of that chessboard is some vacant land. But you already have a balance sheet. You already have cash flow. Lenders already like you for other reasons. You can add development to your plate, but you still have your bread and butter things that you're doing. This is just a supplement to what you're doing, right? That's the incremental change type world. And so one of my friends who owns probably the most units close in Portland has a ton of land in that neighborhood because 30 years ago, he's just buying that neighborhood up. He has a lot of existing units. He has a lot of vacant land. He's built a few 80-unit buildings. And he and I went and toured some projects about 6 months ago to see what I was doing on the cottage side. And he was talking about his project. He's like, yeah, I have 2 of them, and I designed 60-unit buildings. Now I'm redesigning 12-unit townhomes.
Wow.
Right? So he's going from 60 units, 48 of those are studios and 1 bedrooms, to now we're going to build 12 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhomes. Why? Because you won't find that in that neighborhood. And he can do that. He probably spent $300,000 on architecture and engineering, and that building is approved. And he's letting that $300,000 go down the toilet. And he's now going to spend another $60,000 to do this 12 unit design, but that's how you be successful in development. The hardest thing that people won't do in the development world is let go.
Except sunk costs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think now is like one of the best times to land bank then, just because land prices are so low?
Because yes, that's what I've been saying, right? Like that's the whole thing is land is the first thing to drop, but land is also the first thing to come back.
So speaking to not
I
these,
can see Dane's like trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I don't know that I've thought about that.
So land value is the first thing to go because that's the hardest thing to finance.
Say it again.
Okay. Land is the first thing to go because that's the hardest thing to finance.
Yeah, but why does it come back first? I know it's the first thing to go, but why does it come back?
Yeah, I guess it's not that it bounces back the fastest, meaning the residential market will start going first, and that will be the signs of it. But the increase in value isn't huge. Yeah. It's the activity is shown, right? Yeah. So now your absorption rate's there, right? Okay, great. The market's moving again. But that residential didn't drop like land. Yeah. It dropped a little, and now it's going back up a little. And land dropped huge, and now it's like, oh, we have the back end. Now demand comes back. Now lending comes back, and then that land value spikes back up. So I've seen that 3 times now.
Are you developing any projects right now?
Yeah, like cottage clusters.
So why do
I'm specifically focusing on cottage clusters?
Why
because the cost per unit is just like an apartment. The rent per unit is better than an apartment. The options for an exit are significantly more than an apartment.
Because you can condo and sell them individually? Is that?
And you can do middle housing land divisions, correct? Because it's a commercial debt stack to develop it, but it's a residential market segment that you're going into, that you're exiting into.
So when you exit that and condo it, are you doing lien releases on like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not an easy strategy. We can do it because we have the lender relationships and the track record, right? So my story is we took on $20 million of debt over the past 4 years. I paid my company made $75,000 on me signing on $20 million of debt. That's the reality of what the development cycle has been. Yeah,
that's not very. That's
why I've been stressed out.
That makes sense.
But again, that's a tag on to the reason I'm still alive is because I have other things going on, right? That's a partnership, and it was a debt-driven partnership, and the only way out. So we bought 15 projects in 2021, and those needed $2 or $3 million of equity, which that's private capital, to then get your construction loans and move forward. That's at a 90% loan to cost. And then by summer of 2022, we're at 70% loan to cost. Now you need another $5 million of liquidity. And so, you just kind of do what you do to get through what you got. And so our way out so what does that mean? Land value dropped. So we are over leveraged on everything that we bought. And so then you make a decision. And a lot of people are making the decision of, well, what do? Do you just twiddle your thumbs and then it gets worse? And then all of a sudden you have nothing that you can do? What we did is, I realized this in June and July of 2022. So made a very quick plan. Just like, I wasn't there when Arthur and Ruben were here, but it's the exact same thing, right? You have way too much product. You need to get all these construction loans. You have land. Like their only way out is through. And so you make a plan and you contact all your lenders and you go and beg and plead to go get more money, more high risk debt. We're giving participation loans. And you make a plan to get through and you try and create liquidity in one project so you can build out one project. So now you make some profit because you can still make profit if you can get through. And the way we went, like 1 year we made 200 grand and then we made 800 grand and then we lost 500 grand and then we lost 700 grand. It's just, so you work your way through, but now on the back end of it, we have a great track record. Lenders are like, holy shit, you guys, exited 65 condo units in the past 5 years when a lot of builders were going under and didn't get foreclosed on.
Yeah.
So speaking to like people who are trying to get into it in the smaller projects, not like the 50 to 200 unit ones that we're looking at, is people can still do those. Like I just did one with Jaron. Well, he did it. I just had the land. I contributed the land to him, and that was just a duplex build, and the economics of it made sense. And it was his first build, I think, that he had done. So like people can still do that product type right now, can't they? It's just how we got that land was the land was essentially free because I bought extra land with a fourplex or whatever I had, and I divided off and contributed the land into the project. And like people, we've sold a couple pieces of like smaller piece of land that we had, and that stuff had traded quickly. So I think there's a lot of people still trying to do these smaller projects.
And they can. And the smaller projects are the ones that work because your absorption rate, right, you don't have as many units to absorb. Your back end timeline significantly shorter. The amount of equity that you need significantly different. Mm-hmm. And it's a better market you're going into, right? Selling a duplex is significantly different than selling a 12 unit because the back end financing for those two products is significantly different. And when your land's free, so you can do 2 to 4 unit with free land. I don't know that you can do a 12 unit with free land right now and make it make sense.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where you just understand market conditions. And that's why we have construction booms and cycles. And so as a developer, the reason I'm good is because I've just been watching this for 15, 16 years now. I've seen developers go under, it's really sad. I know a lot of developers that were good at just doing infill construction in Portland, and then they wanted to syndicate apartment buildings. And that's a daisy chain of fucking events. There's one builder that I can think of that one of my friends who is now in trouble because he sold property to someone and this builder was going to build for free and do the equity. And it's like, now he's stuck holding a note. They can't perform. This builder's underwater. And it's a daisy chain. And there's multiple builders in town like that. And so you get over your skis. You don't plan. You get going really fast. You're playing too much golf. You're not watching your cash flow. You're not making your projections. In 22 and 23, it's daily. It's a daily event for me. Not daily, a couple days a week. I'm going in and just redoing all of our cash flow. You have to keep your eye on the target and where it's going. And you have to know what's your runway. And when we have Matt King on the next episode, that was what I learned out of GoBundance when COVID first started. It was, what's your runway? And that lesson in COVID to really understand what's your runway was the lesson that got me through 2022, 3, and 2024. Yeah, most developers don't understand what's your runway. They're like, I don't know, what the fuck's that mean?
So for people who want to get into this, like, what is the best move? Do they go work at a company that's building some of these bigger projects? Do they try to do where you and your owner occupied loan and you can build something to learn? Like what should someone do who wants to get into this space?
Man, all incremental change, small development, learn what the process is, learn what the different types of capital stacks are. Don't get way over your skis. I'm never the guy that says just go big. I'm not the Grant Cardone guy. 1% of people will succeed at that. Probably 1% of the people that succeed in real estate would succeed at that. And and it's a very small percentage of people that will succeed in real estate. So don't go be a unicorn. There's no reason to go be a unicorn. You don't take on projects that can wipe you out. And that's why when you get into these bigger projects and you get into rooms with guys with bigger capital stacks, the discussion about non-recourse debt is very, very big, right? So like we just got our first non-recourse debt loan, but I've come up through the small route where I have personal guarantee on everything. Everything has a personal guarantee. Everything. Private lenders, they all have personal guarantees. There's no way in hell I'm not paying this debt off. And there is some relief when you can get into the bigger projects that you can sign non-recourse debt, but that's because the lender's requiring you to bring millions of dollars to the table. And so
start with like that owner occupied like development loan, and that's a good route for someone, or how do they go about it? Because the beginner person, right, they don't have a ton of capital, they don't have a ton of experience. How do you do it?
Yeah, my thought to your point of incremental change, don't start with development. Like buy a fourplex on your owner occupied loan, buy a duplex on your owner occupied loan. Like all the people who I know who have been extremely successful developers, you go back to like the origin story, and it's like, so it was the year was 1980, and I bought my first house on a seller carry, and then I bought another house the next year on a seller carry, and then I could buy like 2 duplexes the following year from the same guy that I bought the first house from. And you see them just like start stacking the pieces to then they get to the point where it's like, and then I got a 60% construction loan because I sold one of the houses and rolled into whatever, a piece of land or a house with some land behind it that I knew I could build another duplex on. But I don't think that like, I think that you can maybe get lucky on your first development. And if you learn a lot, then okay, you get to go do the second one. But it's like, if your first thing is going to be development and you're doing it with none of your own capital, you're just gambling. Like, you're just a gambler.
Yeah, development is not investing. Development is speculation. It is the top of the mountain of speculation.
I think it can be. I don't want to say that it is in every scenario. Like across the board, I don't want to say that it is. But I do agree that there's
no income in place. It's speculation. There's no income in place. It's full speculation. You are speculating at what point in the future will you have income and how much money do you have to spend to get there. There's nothing that's investment about that. That is pure risk. Now, you can say it's a high risk investment strategy, sure, but no, it's pure speculation. The better you are, you can remove the risk because you can speculate better. But the longer the time frame is, more things are so many out of your control. It's just speculative. I would never put development in the world of investing. They're two different things. Investments have income streams.
Not all investments.
Gold, silver.
Gold, it's a store of value. It's not an investment. It's a store of value.
Yeah. I don't wholeheartedly agree, but I agree that there's parts of it that are speculative, but I don't think it's like full speculation.
Why?
There's pieces of it, because there's pieces of it that you know the answer to. Like, you know what the values of XYZ are on the front end. You know what the income is going to be. Certainly if you get a construction perm loan.
Do you? Do you?
I mean, you know what your income's going to be.
You can tell me what your construction costs are going to be 18 months.
Well, the same thing could be said about a triple net, like the triple net Rite Aid.
A value add, sure.
People 5 years ago, no. People 5 years ago thought that a triple net Rite Aid was like a total, there's no speculation to it at all. And it's like, well, there's still risk involved, right? Because they went into bankruptcy, and now
that's different though. That's different. That is the risk of investing. But there is an income stream when they bought it. They bought an income stream.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's not, like, that doesn't make development full speculation, because there were people renting apartments next door when you started building the project. Like, you know that people want to live in a certain area, and when they live,
what do lenders call those loans, Dane? What are those loans called?
What loans?
They're called spec loans. Construction loans are called by the lender spec loans. Speculative. They are speculative
I haven't
loans.
heard that on the construction or the commercial side.
Yeah, that's what they're called, spec loans.
I'm sure that it is for like a spec home, but I haven't heard it called that on the apartment side.
Sure, it's semantics. There's no reason to argue about this. But to go on your point, yes, that's what I did. I started splitting off lots, selling them to builders. Then I partnered with builders once a year. And then I formed a partnership with the builder to start an actual business building. So there was a lot of incremental change. By the time by 2021 had come, I had already built 8 or 9 homes as a partnership. And so I understood the process. I understood that we were getting into it. So incremental change is the way to get into it.
Yeah, don't start with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got to hop on to another episode, but any closing thoughts there?
Buy a fourplex with your owner-occupied loan that has 3 people renting it right now and 1 vacant unit that you can turn.
Yeah, development is a shiny object, and it makes sense why people want to do it. But how many people that want to do it actually know how to profit off of it and what profit you're going to get? And that's the problem. And that's where you really want a mentor that can show you this is the actual strategy. This is how you actually get through the process. And this is the actual profit that you make.
Sweet. We'll close it out for us.
Deal Junkies, Thank you for listening.
Buenos noches.
Buenos tardes. Yeah, come in. Gabe's here too. Gabe will be in the next episode.
Hi, Mike.
Oh, my favorite golf hater.
Tell him to share it with a friend.
Oh, hey, please share Deal Junkies with your friend, somebody you love. We love you, Deal Junkies.
We'll see you next time.